Hi there. Welcome to Steel Copy of a Wooden Bridge. My name's Derek Ashmore. I'm from Asperitas Consulting in Chicago. Steel copy of a wooden bridge is a phrase that my grandfather used to use and I picked up. The way I interpret it is that when new things come along, be they materials or be they technologies, you don't necessarily use the same techniques that you used in the past when adopting the new technologies. And I think this applies to cloud adoption and DevOps automation. I've seen customer after customer effectively try to create steel copies of a wooden bridge with cloud adoption and DevOps automation. And the result is usually frustration, and they usually do not get the benefit out of the cloud that they sought. So I'm going to take you through some of the common tactics that our customers use and things that we've found that appear to work in some of our more mature customers. Let's level set at the beginning of the story. When our customers migrate to the cloud, or when companies generally migrate to the cloud, they do so for perceived benefits. They perceive it's more cost effective. They perceive that they can get to market with new business capabilities more quickly. They perceive that they can get out of the data center business and not have to worry as much about buying, renting property and things like power consumption and racks and all that kind of stuff. And they also want a global reach. Increasingly, companies are moving worldwide, and cloud vendors seem to be able to be able to move your assets and workloads and applications closer to the user so that they get better performance. There are probably other benefits than just those four, but those are big ones. Why use DevOps automation? Basically, it helps your cloud footprint grow and shrink with your business. If I want to spin up new environments with automation, somebody feeds that automation some different parameters and hits a go button. Once it's created, it's very easy to create new environments. Environment consistency. We have all seen the problem where this application works in dev, it works in UAT, but it doesn't work in production. DevOps automation makes each and every environment consistent, which reduces that kind of problem. It also gives you productivity increases in the long term, right? Initially, creating an automation for a given environment or a given application or a given network scope takes some upfront time. But once you have it, you automate once and deploy many times. And so over the long haul, you get some admin productivity improvements. And you also get reduced error rates. Most errors, in my experience, and your experience might be different, most errors come from manual work where somebody accidentally forgot to do something, or somebody accidentally did something differently in production than they manually did it in UAT. And automation basically reduces that error rate. Also, the beginning of the story, what do corporations do when new technologies come in? I'll tell you what they do. The universal answer is they create a new silo. And we see that. We see that today. We see that in terms of networking teams, security teams, database administration teams. Any new technology that comes out seems to get a new silo or get incorporated into an existing silo. And when cloud adoption came out, basically I've had 4 different customers that created a cloud center of excellence or something along those lines, and at some point deprecated that silo as not really working for them. And we're going to go into why that is, but in essence, creating a silo is an example of a steel copy of a wooden bridge that we're going to talk about. All right. Soon after cloud adoption happens, you get the sales pitch violations. Customers routinely see security breaches coming from their cloud footprint, availability failures, more likely due to their use of a cloud than the cloud itself, performance issues. If an application isn't performing on premise, the reality is it probably won't perform as well in the cloud either. Somebody wakes up and discovers that their monthly bill is much higher than forecast. They get unexpected cost spikes. And due to the fact that this is in essence, a new set of technologies, things seem to take longer as people ramp up. And what businesses seem to soon realize that the labor market for cloud specialists and DevOps automation specialists is very tight. We all like that. It means higher salaries and better employment for us, but that's a constraint that businesses deal with. And then you get something that normally you don't see with other technology silos. Cloud teams necessarily, by definition, they have to deal with topics that are traditionally delegated to existing silos: security, network infrastructure, firewalls, hybrid cloud issues. They become involved in extending Active Directory force, DNS provisioning. Most of our companies or customers are using custom DNS, VPN connectivity, on-premise connectivity, things like that they have to deal with. And old silos will basically, or existing silos will basically initially defer that to the cloud silo, but eventually they realize as a cloud footprint gets larger and larger and the on-premises data center footprint starts to stagnate, they start to see the end of the story that they really don't like. In short, the existing silos don't seem to work well anymore. It's a steel copy of a wooden bridge. And what ends up happening is that the existing silos aren't really cloud literate, or they're not DevOps automation literate. They don't have, sometimes don't even want, but they don't have cloud skills. They're used to doing things manually. It's what they're comfortable with. They resist change, just like it's human nature for all of us to resist change. And as the cloud footprint grows, like I said before, basically they see their relevance starting to stagnate. On the other side of the coin, for the cloud teams and the DevOps teams, basically the grass isn't always completely green either. They come from a wide variety of backgrounds. Sometimes they're a little bit weak on networking skills or security skills. They're forced to deal with VM administration for Windows and Linux machines that they might not have had to deal with before. Sometimes even database administration types of tasks if you adopt PaaS databases. And the list doesn't end there. Basically, the old silos don't work. And this is more than just a technology problem. Essentially, management experiences a paradigm shift too, right? Because this is different than what they've always encountered. And what if there are any management personnel in the crowd, what I would encourage you to do is adopt the paradigm shift. Instead of the whole implementing manual reviews and approvals for change requests that come down the line, automate your guardrails, right? Automation will get you out of that. I'll give you an example. Basically, my team opened up a port to the internet to a CIDR block of all zeros. And within 30 seconds, it got shut down because somebody had implemented a policy that said that you got to go through some sort of approval process to open up something completely to the internet. And we had unknowingly violated that. So within 30 seconds, we got shut down, and we got an email describing the process that we had to go through, right? That's a good example of automating reviews and approvals, or automating policies rather than manually enforcing them. Automated testing, we've done so for a while, or we've used that for a while. Whitelisting cloud services. Some customers have legal requirements such as HIPAA and that kind of thing that they need to deal with. There's no reason to manually enforce that. What you want to do is automate policies to incent use of the services that you want. The other thing that happens from a management perspective is capacity planning. They're used to doing that up front, and that is because it takes months, sometimes many months, to get additional capacity in data centers. But that just doesn't apply anymore in the cloud because everything's software. And so in lieu of trying to capacity plan up front and trying to predict that, capacity planning is much more of a monitoring cost automatically and investigating issues as they come up retroactively. Mandating policy changes by edict, or I call this by the Yule-Brenner, so let it be written, so let it be done. Don't rely on manual enforcement. Management still dictates policy, but work with an automation team to automatically enforce that policy and not rely on manual compliance. Things that don't work. In the steel copy of a wooden bridge quest that our customers go through, we see the first thing that they do is they add manual approvals and reviews to everything once some of those sales pitch violations start rearing their ugly head. The problem with that is it kills velocity and it kills productivity, right? One of the reasons that companies go to the cloud is to move business capabilities to users or customers more quickly. And manual approvals and reviews basically kill velocity, and it kills that speed to market benefit. And it stops innovation, right? Essentially, application teams are loath to try new services or new things simply because they don't want the bureaucratic hassle that comes along with the approval and the review. And it creates bottlenecks. One of two things happen. Either the people doing the manual approvals or reviews basically rubber stamp everything, in which case, why do the review at all? Or they become a bottleneck, in which case that process becomes the constraint that applications go through. The other thing that happens is executives get impatient, waiting for automation to complete and be properly worked through the life cycle so that they can get changes that they want. And what ends up happening is somebody puts their foot down and attempts to expedite a change and instructs people to do it manually. The problem is that creates technical debt, right? What happens is at that point, the point at which you do that, your automation is no longer going to match what's physically out there. And that creates additional support labor to marry those two up again eventually. And so I've had some customers even just give up on trying to catch automation up because the manual edicts are just too numerous to keep up. So you don't want to do that. That really doesn't work. Things that do work. Declare war on manual approvals. All right. Now that the cloud is completely software and you have a wide variety of DevOps automation tools, there is very little reason for something to require a manual approval anymore. Favor automated guardrails to the extent that you can. Automate your oversight in terms of policies and in terms of custom automations that close custom loops, like the exposure of a port to the internet, that kind of thing. Decentralized cloud management. Corporations are all about centralizing specific topics in silos. The problem is that with cloud adoption, if you put that in one silo, it becomes a bottleneck. And so rather than do that, let the app teams manage their own application infrastructure. Basically, put guardrails around it, put policies around it, but let the app teams and business units be free to innovate. Create a service catalog. What I mean by that is that most of our customers have legal constraints. I've got a medical insurance provider that has to be HIPAA compliant. And not all services in their cloud vendor are HIPAA compliant. So everything needs to go through some sort of review process. So automate whitelisting of services, what app teams are allowed to use versus what they shouldn't use yet. And part B to that idea is create a reasonable process to get new services evaluated, right? You don't want to kill innovation along the way. You do have legal requirements that you need to meet, but you need a reasonable process for evaluating new services that come up to make sure that they're HIPAA compliant or FERPA compliant or data residency compliant or whatever legal paradigm your company needs to do. The other thing that works is fund automation. All right. You're not going to make it in this world manually without killing all the benefits that you're going to the cloud for. So one of the things you want to do is basically fund automation, realize that it's a specialized skill set, realize that you're going to need to fund it to make it work. And also things that work is DevOps team discipline. Basically, automation should follow a life cycle, just like application code. You never change automation code and inflict it on production without testing it first. Primarily, it goes through the sandbox first, if you can, and then basically through the life cycle in some sort of way where problems are caught earlier in the life cycle than later. And source management and change management discipline is key for DevOps teams to making this work. Tales from the field. We have a customer that's a large product firm. They manage input from millions of IoT devices. So it's a very large footprint. They completely rebuild their environment in a separate region every 2 weeks to make sure that their automation is up to speed and still works and still reflects what they're actually running. Fast food franchise. They make it very easy to a new business idea comes up and they're going to spin off a new app team or business unit. They make it cookie cutter to adopt, to basically create business unit network spokes, complete with guardrails, complete with security policies, complete with security roles that the new business unit can deal with, complete with internet ingress, egress, on-premises network capability, the works. Large financial institution. It manages blue-green capabilities through automation for its mobile apps. That is, they test in production. They don't rely completely on testing in test environments. They test in production. Now, that comes to the end of my talk. Thanks for coming. If you have questions or if I said something that doesn't gel with you, feel free to contact me offline through one of these sources, and I'll be happy to get your questions answered. Thanks for coming. Good luck at the conference.